Aaron Douglas is really special. Aaron Douglas grew up in Topeka, Kansas. He was born here and he was a graduate of Topeka High School. He is noted in the yearbooks as being a very, very talented artist. And these are the Topeka High School 1915 and 1917 yearbook covers that Douglas designed. I think it is fabulous that we have a representation of a kid from Topeka who loved art, who dedicated himself to it, and who now is often referred to as the father of African American art. Douglas was very, very talented, and he was even recognized in high school as having that talent. The caption below his photograph talks about how he was involved in art and talks about his talent. He was able to go to college at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, and he earned his Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in 1922. He said that he was the only black student there, but that he felt pretty comfortable because he was very friendly and he made a lot of friends. He did not feel singled out, I think, while he was going to school. He felt like it was a pretty nurturing experience. The portrait of his wife, Alta, was made in 1936. Douglas decided to go back and forth between realism and abstraction for what he wanted to convey in his art, which was the struggle of Black Americans. Abstraction was much more expressive. Even though he could paint realistically, what he's best known for are very dramatic, black and white, stark, angular, geometric images depicting struggle, anger, sometimes people being attacked, a lot of diagonal, sharp lines that let you know there's a lot of turmoil going on. And it was. He was making these images for magazines like The Crisis, which was the National Association for the Advancement of Colored Persons magazine, another magazine called Opportunity. And while he was doing that, he was still having his imagery published in Harper's and in Vanity Fair. So he was quite successful in his career. But what Douglas was doing in the work was geometricizing the human form. So taking something that is round and making it flat, just using geometric shapes to convey the body, to convey movement, and especially the face. What he was looking at was work from ethnographic museums. He was in New York and Harlem, and he was able to study at the Natural History Museum, different museums that had collections of African art, which wasn't in art museums at the time, it was in natural history museums, and be influenced by those masks and those sculptures, which really simplified the human form, exaggerated some features, did a lot with geometry. When you look at this mask, which is from the Ivory Coast, you can kind of see the similarity, the angular eyes, sharp mouth, sharp jaw, sharp lines, and even along the edge of the mask, some of the geometric patterns. All of this was part of the Harlem Renaissance. After the emancipation of the slaves, after Reconstruction, after people had fled the South in Jim Crow laws, after people were able to start becoming successful, the black community pulled together and they wanted to recreate their identity. By doing that, they looked at black history, they looked at black artists, black writings, and it was a flowering of culture. In the 1930s, Aaron Douglas was part of the Works Project Administration, the Public Works Project specifically. He was commissioned to do murals in buildings around New York City. This is a shot of one of the wall murals at the New York Public Library on the 135th Street branch. Topeka has reproduced this mural on the corner of 12th and Lane Streets in the area where it is absolutely appropriate. The neighborhood is called Tennessee Town, and it was founded in about 1880 when people were fleeing the South and coming to Kansas because of Kansas's role in the Civil War. In this one, you see a person in the center who has broken his chains and he is calling for action. On the right, you see the flourishing of music in the Harlem Renaissance period. People like Duke Ellington and Fats Waller were very, very popular. On the left, you see something that depicts the history of America and a sad phase. There is a burial going on and riding up behind the people who are mourning is the Ku Klux Klan. That was part of history, and Douglass did want to acknowledge that and also to condemn it. He saw what was happening in the South. Lynching was not yet a federal crime, even though there were efforts made to try to get it made into a federal crime. And people lived in fear. So living with that as a constant possibility in the South was something that Aaron Douglass felt he had to protest. The Topeka Turnaround Team worked with David Lowenstein and Stan Hurd, who are two artists out of Lawrence, Kansas, and also students from our area high schools and colleges. They reproduced the mural twice the size that it originally was. And I think that was kind of a wonderful way to commemorate and celebrate this very talented Topeka artist. Aaron Douglass is so special to us because he did grow up here in Topeka. He represents the creativity of our community. He represents people who can beat any odds. And I think that's one of the reasons Topeka should be so proud of Aaron Douglass.